worked together as a team to come up with this magnificent structure that is now what we call the Chisamba Solar Project.
I would like to find out these partners and what role specifically they play in you addressing the financing model for this particular project. Is it a loan? Is it a PPP? What is it?
It is what we call in finance a structure. So what you do is we go to an independent power producer who approaches the bank and acts as a guarantor on behalf of Zesco. Because you've always heard talk about Zesco's balance sheet, and I'll come back to that issue also, because it's a very important issue that we need to address about the Zesco balance sheet going forward. It's something that the nation must understand, how it is impacting our ability, and why certain decisions that people sometimes don't understand are done. And I'll explain this soon. But yes, it is a loan finance, like sitting in the books of Africa Green Co. Zesco sells the electricity to Africa Green Co. to service that loan to the bank. That's how it is sitting now.
Why couldn't Zesco take up this responsibility? I know that you're about to explain on Zesco's balance sheet, but also the understanding by many is that currently your organization, Zesco Board Chairman, is broke and you've reached the ceiling in terms of borrowing money.
Now that, let me put it in proper perspective, and that's what I'm saying I want to explain. There is one thing in business that you need: credibility. Over the years, Zesco lost credibility. As a nation, we must take the responsibility for having driven Zesco to that place. Zesco would consume people's power and not pay. That's why many of our IPPs, whether I'm talking about Ndola Energy, I'm talking about Hiteji Power Station Financials, I'm talking about whoever Zesco dealt business with, Mamba Energy, all of them, by the end of December 2021, we were in deep debt. And that started impacting on the credibility of this institution. When I want to go and borrow money, they just look at this debt and they ask, remember, due diligence. You go and ask the people who have dealt business with that person. They tell, man, Zesco does not pay. And it was true. We're not paying. Now, why we're not paying is a story for another day. But it's not right. You don't consume people's products and not pay. It impacts on the credibility. And now, this is how the trickle-down effect worked. I walked into an office of someone in Washington one day, and I started talking about Zesco. First statement, Chair, your institute does not pay. So your credibility and the lack of it spreads internationally when you don't pay, because these people also borrow their money from international banks. So that then created a problem for Zesco that we start to address as a nation, that we start to unravel as a board. So because we cannot sit still and wait for the day when our credibility is restored, then we go into financial structures. That is what led us to where we came to.
So would you still confidently say tonight, Chairman, that Zesco has still its name dented in terms of its ability to pay back debt and its financial status?
Now let me put it in context. You'll understand my background is finance and not engineering. So the first thing that we sit as a board, as we look at the Zesco structure, we realize that the first thing is to restore credibility. So engaged all the people who owed money, especially the independent power producers whose electricity was consuming without paying. We went and sat with them and said, look, we want to restore this credibility. Let's enter into a conversation. All of them were in court, by the way. How do we come out of the courts? Can we agree that we quarantine this debt, the old debt, we put it in a basket, and we reach a payment plan on how we service it? The new debt, as you invoice us, we'll pay you as invoiced. Trust me, and we did as agreed until this catastrophic drought came and set us backwards a few steps. But we have started rebuilding that credibility that Zesco addressed over the years. People at least had started trusting us. The reason why at the height of our load shedding we're in such financial stress is because even our own core utilities like Eskom in South Africa, EDM in Mozambique, could not give us power on credit. We had to pay in advance. That is a very difficult situation to be in. But right now, slowly, we're starting to regain the credibility. And it'll come to, let me come immediately to one point that you did ask me in happenstance, and that's the exports. So what we did is one of the ways to address this issue of credibility. We asked Zanaco to syndicate a loan for us to pay part of the IPP debts. And in order for us to be able to syndicate that debt, we had to commit some of our electricity in the country as exports to certain power utilities in the region. And we said, we will commit so much megawatts into this basket. Every month, when we sell this electricity, it will sit in this account. You just collect. No need to negotiate. That is how we facilitated Zanaco's ability to syndicate that loan. Now, we cannot renege again and say we are putting back those megawatts. We are no longer going to export this power. We just use it locally. We go back to the old debt, old habit of being an untrustworthy institution that no one trusts, that no one is willing to do business with without a cash transaction. Cash transactions are very painful.
Are we coming to how much we're exporting versus how much we're importing as a country? But let's get back to the solar plant here. We are told that this solar plant is 100 megawatts.
Yes.
Is this the installed capacity, or this is what goes in the grid, Chairman?
I just want to demystify the thing about solar. Solar, as the name suggests, depends on the sun. Yesterday, during the launch, our average generation at that time was 81 megawatts, 81.6 megawatts to be specific. So solar can move as high as 100 megawatts if that's how we installed capacity, depending on the position of the sun and the radiation available. So when people tell you about 20%, these are just I don't know where they get these figures. But in reality, solar can take you up to 100 megawatts, depending on the position of the sun and the time of the day. At its peak, we get 100%. In the morning, yes, it keeps building up.
So I think maybe to be very clear, because I think research, typically, shows that the efficiency of solar panels ranges between 17 and 23%, and that's why I asked, whether this installed capacity that we have in Chisamba is what is going to be produced in the national grid. Like, for example, you said yesterday at peak, obviously it was at 81
megawatts, yes.
Megawatts, and you said that this again is dependent on how the sun treats us.
Yes, but let me ask you a question. Let's reverse the question. The Kariba Dam, installed capacity 180 megawatts. When there is no rain, we go down to 35. It is the same, whichever source of energy you are using. When the determining underlying factor, whether it's water, sun, diesel, or whatever it is, when it is low, you can't get the optimum level. So solar should not be vilified just because it uses the sun. During the daytime, we get a lot of megawatts. It is only at night when there's no sun, and just like our rivers, when there's no rain, when there's drought, we can't get the megawatts that are installed. It's like anything else. We are dependent on the variant that supplies the ability to generate in any case. So solar is very reliable.
But not guaranteed. We might say that, look, Chairman, you're on record of stating that we cannot really be dependent on water.
No.
For us to get our electricity.
Precisely.
And so we still say the same about solar. We can't really depend on solar for us to have our energy, isn't it?
That's why we have an energy mix, not a single source. Right now, when let's say at peak, the solar plants are giving us 100%. Then, in a normal year, not in a drought, in a normal year, then we are saving our water. That water will be used at night. That is the whole concept of an energy mix, a proper energy mix in a country when you're doing your generation. Have everything mixed properly. Then you have optimal. Your water becomes your battery. Daytime, it is saving. Night, it kicks in. Daytime, the water goes, you stop the water, the sun comes in. Then we also have our thermal power, Mamba right now.
Yeah.
it is also supporting, keeping us in balance. So what this country needs to move, and that's why the Zesco board and management is moving the country into a proper energy mix, so that every source contributes, each one at its strength, it is working.
Well, what is our current energy deficit as a country?
It is sitting from anything from 1,000 to 1,200 megawatts right now.
So now, then this contradicts with the ministerial statement that the minister gave, because in the ministerial statement the minister gave on the on the 12th of June in Parliament, he revealed that as of 30th May 2025, the country's average electricity generation stood at 1,806 megawatts against a national demand of 2,400 megawatts, leaving a deficit of 594. This is the statement.
No, it's not a contradiction, Andrew. It's not a contradiction. We are dealing with average figures here. We're not doing absolute figures. It depends on what time you captured the generation on the 31st of May. I think I just need us to put these things in perspective. We talk averages. Yeah. On average, if I'm holding a charcoal that is 100 degrees and I'm holding an ice that is 0 degrees or minus 5 degrees, on average, I could be fine, but one hand is burning, one is freezing. That is the problem with averages. We saw that, we say in statistics, the laws of statistics are valid in the long run. But there's no contradiction. Now let me get down now to your question, and I address it in a very holistic manner. Yeah. Yes, Zesco is faced with these various dynamics. One of them, at our peak in December, we had gone to a level of importing 550 megawatts coming into the country. At our peak at one time, we were exporting 350 megawatts. So what we did to placate this gap, one was now reduce our exports from 350 down to about 130, 150, which are contractual, the ones that underpin the syndicated loan. And those exports, and I want to be very honest with the nation, cannot be eliminated without us going back to the issue of being a lack of integrity institutions that does not pay for commitments that have made to the country. We made commitment to Zanaco, to the banks. Zanaco was just a forward bank. There are others involved. For them to be able to support us, like Stanbic was able to support, it's because of that credibility that we are starting to restore by being honorable people who pay as per your commitment. Now, let's now move down to the generation. We say we are the minister, what figure did you use?
The minister said the generation stood at 1,806.
Good. Now, out of that 1,806, we have two things that we're pursuing. First, we have what we call exempt demands. Those institutions and businesses that we don't load shed, because the consequences of load shedding them will be so high. The mines, for example. The machines must keep pumping the water out of the mines, otherwise they flood. We create a West national disaster. Of that amount, already half, 900, goes to the mines. We have other exempt loads that are up to 400 megawatts. Do your mathematics. What am I left with from 1,800? I've already taken out 1,300 for exempt loads. Okay? Now, at the same time, I am looking at my financials. If I continue to bridge the gap by exports, or by imports rather, what am I doing? I am creating a deeper hole for Zesco. So as we get more electricity into the grid, I'd rather reduce the imports by providing that electricity from our generation.
Weren't you allowing the big mines, the mines to buy electricity on their own? They have the capacity to do so.
This is a discussion that we have with the mines, that we can do that. But even in this power that the exempt load, they are not paying the same price that they used to pay, that they pay under our bulk supply agreements. A fraction of that is paid at a premium rate. Because we understand Power is expensive to do. So the mines are not getting it that light. They also pay more than they should have paid on normal circumstances. But that is not the point. The point is, what is the principle of keeping the mines running? Because they are the backbone of our economy. They bring us the majority of the foreign exchange. They are the largest taxpayers right now in the country. They employ most of the people that are in jobs in the country, save for the civil service. Now, how do you then start being so fixated on electricity saving to the point where you sink your tax base, you sink your foreign exchange base, you start to cripple your own economy. So these things are taken in a holistic approach. We do not want to sub-optimize, where you're just looking at just the profitability of Zesco, but in the process, you sink the economy.
Make this math make sense to me, Chairman. Even with that explanation that you're giving us, if we have a deficit as of, because this is just 30 days ago when the minister gave,
yes,
this statement, just 14 days ago when the minister gave, this statement. According to the minister, the deficit is 594, yes, with the coming in of 100 on the grid. My math tells me that the deficit is now 494 in terms of what we have as a deficit, in the country. But also it makes sense, Chairman, because what the people are receiving is not a reflection of these figures that you're giving us. Because if we're going to go by these figures, at least I should have 75% of power in my house. I'm only having 20% of power.
But I've already done your computation. From 1,800, I've taken 1,200.
To the mines?
No. Exempt lots. I've got the hospitals are in there. Some key installations are there. The water pumping institutions are there. We cannot cripple the water and say you can no longer pump water because we have no power. There are certain institutions that we classify at Zesco as exempt lots. That includes the mines, the hospitals, key universities, includes water pumping stations. So those are priorities. So out of that 1,800, take out 1,300 that goes to exempt lot. How much have I left to share for the nation? That is the mathematics.
That is the mathematics.
Yes, that's how it works. So what I do is, instead of importing part of the exempt lot, I then remove the imports and bring the generation on board to ensure that while I maintain the exempt lot, at least I am not crippling Zesco by importing in advance, paying in advance, looking for cash every month. You end up borrowing again from banks to try and bridge that gap. So that is the mathematics that works here, Andrew.
Also, again, I know you touched a bit on it, but make it also make sense. How much are we exporting versus how much we are importing?
At our peak, like I said, we had gone to 550 megawatts imports. With our exports at constant at 150, the fluctuation 150, 130. That is where we sit. We have not increased the export above that level. Now, there's something that I also want to explain, because sometimes people may not understand.
Yeah.
There is, electricity. When you're generating electricity, demand is also fluctuating. There is what we call the SADC market, spot market. So if I have a 50 megawatt at that particular time, that I cannot use, I throw it on the export market. It is taken. I make money just for that period. But once again that period passes, again I close. That is like an hourly movement. It's not an issue that when you hear that, maybe you go and check, you find that Zesco today exported 200 megawatts. It's not that for the whole month, or for the whole week, or for the whole day. There was a spot market. Even us, when we have a deficit, sometimes we go to or we call SAP spot market and buy electricity. It comes in and goes out, comes in on an endless cycle. So that is what happens. So our export fixed would sit between 130 and 120. 130, 150 megawatts. Our export, we are reducing them as we generate more. We reduce them to cap the bill. That's how the mathematics.
So the mathematics works. But also help us understand how this then works, Chairman. We had a very good rainfall season, in the 2024-25 rainy season, which was better than the previous one that we had the other year. Why hasn't there been a noticeable improvement in electricity supply with this improved rains that we've had as a country?
Now there are two things that I need to explain there. First and foremost, our baseline is wrong. We should have picked a year when we had no load shedding to see if our rainfalls have achieved those levels. No, we are picking a year when at one time our availability of power in the whole country was 3 hours at night for the residentials. Because already the exempt load, you must never forget, we would rather spend a lot of money keeping the exempt load because they are the backbone of our economy. So what we are saying is then we pick a year, what I call a dead year statistically. When our water levels reach levels below levels that we have never experienced as a country. And we want to use that as a yardstick for that we have improved. Yes, for last year, our water levels are better than last year. But they've not even reached the level at which we were able to run the country without load shedding. And I've asked Zesco to provide the proper information where the yardstick, the baseline, is a year when we had no load shedding, not last year. So when we tell people about water levels last year improving, we are not being factual. We are factual, but we are not being realistic. If I get in mathematics, my usual average is 75%. I fall down to 30%. Then 2 months, next exam, I get 45. Yes, I've improved from 30%. But I've not passed the exam yet. I'm still a failure. I still failed the math exam. So what I'm saying is, the year that we're using to compute our average is wrong. The baseline cannot be last year. Last year was a dead year to me. I get these daily reports. Itesh, Kafia Gorge lower. We are better than last year, but we have not reached the optimal years when we're not load shedding.
What happens? What about our neighboring country, Zimbabwe, that we share, the Kariba Dam with? Well, we're hearing that they now have power for 21 hours.
Well, I don't have the correct statistics from Zimbabwe. I'll be a liar if I say it's true or it's not true. But I look at their generation on the Kariba, because we call it Kariba South.
Yes.
We are still generating more than them.
But yet they are giving their constituents more power than we are.
I'm not too sure about that, but what I know is a few years ago, they opened another coal plant.
Another coal plant.
Yes, which we didn't open ourselves.
The projection from the from the Chisamba solar plant, the projections are that they are going to provide power to over 30 to 50,000 homes. Help us understand how this is going to work out. Will it improve the number of hours that these households are having power? What exactly, does that statement mean? I saw that you even posted on your Facebook that this will improve, will provide, electricity to between 30 to 50,000 households. How exactly will this work?
Yeah, we're talking about those are working averages. But more importantly, what we have done as a deliberate decision is the areas around that plant, we're going to improve their power supply. Because they are the people who gave us the land. They are the people who are going to give us the security to ensure that those infrastructures are not vandalized. We're going to improve their power supply, especially during the daytime, because that's when we have a lot of their power coming from that plant. That's what is going to happen. As to the national average,
the rest of us,
we have a long-term plan to address the whole nation. But if we bite bit by bit, whatever we would have been sending to Kabwe, to Central Province generally, whatever balance is left, we either reduce the imports or share it more with the rest of the country. That's how this idea of installing plants in a certain area, you then remove that demand, that pressure that you are getting on your national grid from that area, then you transfer it to other people. That is how it will trickle down to the rest of us. But it won't be instant. Like today, no. These are issues that get developed over time. But therefore, information, there's another 25 megawatts that is coming on board before the end of next week, I think, in Serenje. Same concept. Power comes in from solar, goes into the grid, remove the demand that you had from the rest of the grid, takes the rest of the nation. That's how we
paint a picture to us, Chairman. Paint a picture to us. How much electricity does Central Province consume at peak?
I am told it's about 100 megawatts or about.
And so that plant has ability to feed.
If we were to be just mathematical, but remember, they also contribute to the exempt demand. Yes. We still want to feed the mines. We still want to feed the agriculture. Remember, we're now going to, you've heard the president emphasize the issue of no planting season, no rain season. It is just planting season, harvesting season throughout the year. We are prioritizing also the farmers. In fact, I got a call from a wheat farmer in Mukushi not long ago. He says, Chair, I want to plant. Do you guarantee me electricity? And I called my team and they told me, we will guarantee them 12 hours in a day. So we've told them to go ahead and plant. Farmers are already planting wheat, maize, because these developments must drive the economy. Not where we get embarrassed to a level where we are starting to import maize from Tanzania, from all over. We should be able to do it on our own.
One question was asked before the floor of the House, that the off-takers for this is the mine. How true, Chairman, is it that even with this 100 megawatts that has come on board, which so many people are excited about, the mines will still be prioritized with this additional 100 megawatts?
I have said that the exempt lots, Kabwe Hospital, will become part of the beneficiary. Exempt lot, remember? I keep talking exempt lot. The mines, part of the exempt lot, that basket also contributes to the exempt lot, which partly forms the mines. And tell me, what is the problem of the mines benefiting from a plant that in Zambia, so that will reduce the exports, the imports that we get from other countries at a high price? No harm. We are still servicing our economy. You know how an economy, the push and pull factors of an economy, you get a productive sector, it gets the power, it produces, it puts money in people's pockets, the employees, they go to the market, they buy the food, the marketeer buys from the farmer gets money. That is how we find an economy. If we concentrate on the consumption part, then we have a problem. We must feed the productive sector so that then they empower the consumption factor. That is how we move. That's how we are going to balance this economy and make it work. But again, like I said at the beginning, this is a step in the right direction, but a very small step.
President Hakainde Hichilema has got an ambitious target this year to ensure that the country produces about 1,000 megawatts of power. So far, yesterday he said 1,000 minus 100, which brought us to about 900. Do you think the 900 megawatts will be realized and achieved before the end of the year, realistically speaking?
I share that vision 100%. In fact, in my mind, we can exceed it. Because this is not a Zesco-driven agenda. That is why the government, if you are aware, have gone into open access, where players can join into the value chain of electricity from generation, transmission, distribution at any level. We are going to achieve this 1,000 megawatts, if not more, as a nation. Remember, if you today goes and put solar on your own house, you have contributed to the 1,000 megawatts, isn't it? Because you are no longer demanding from Zesco. Okay? Every Zambian who takes a step to put solar on their homes, on their small businesses, or whatever, they are contributing towards the 1,000 megawatts of solar. Already we have pipeline projects. And one day I'll ask the Zesco MD to come and give you the full pipeline projects, because it's not in my remit to get to that detail. All I know is that we have enough pipeline projects both private sector driven and Zesco driven, and a combination of all these, and individuals in their homes working together, we are going to achieve the 1,000.
You speak so well, Chairman. You speak so well. You're giving us projects, you're giving us all these things that you're doing in the background, but we're seeing little impact in terms of what's happening in our homes. We still have no power. Is there light at the end of the tunnel with all these projects that you're doing, especially as we get closer to ending the year?
Now, let me just give you a good analogy. As at December last year, those who use eyes to see could never understand how we are going to become food sufficient. Because we're looking at the price of maize, the availability of milling meal in the shops. We will say it looked such a hopeless situation until the harvest came. What am I saying? You do not plant maize today and expect a harvest in 2 days. It will take time. When you harvest again, there's collection from the harvest point to the distribution point. All those, in as far as I'm concerned, the projects already underway are enough for us to solve the problem of load shedding. We first mitigate, then eliminate. That is happening. That is happening. In fact, when the president was talking about 1,000 megawatts, the message there is, let us end load shedding by December. And we are working towards that day and night, and we shall achieve.
You think that's possible to end load shedding by December, Chairman?
The word possible actually is very light, because in English, there is possible and probable. Here we are talking of probable, not just possible. We're going to do that. We have to work towards it. Remember, in leadership, if you don't believe in the impossible, you achieve nothing. We're going to work and achieve this seemingly impossible task. And that is why we are called to these positions at the time we're called to achieve the impossible.
Will you resign if this is not achieved?
No, I don't know why this mentality, someone must resign, it seems to be very important. No, we will continue working until we achieve. The day I can talk about resigning, when load shedding ends, then I can say, if you know that song in church, when my life work is ended. When you only end your life work when you achieve, not when you fail. I don't even put this failure mentality into your thoughts. Say, when I fail, I'll run away. Don't run away from a problem. Face it. You will see how much the steps have been taken by that time. We should not even be thinking of running away right now. We are thinking of making sure we hold the bull by the horn, hold it down until we get to that end.
You speak with so much confidence, and that's why I asked whether you're going to resign if this doesn't happen, because you seem to have so much confidence in President Hakainde Hichilema's vision, for us to have 1,000 by December. But also something very important, Chairman. What has been the role that the independent, power producers have been playing in the equation of us having this energy mix and us really improving our energy profile as a country?
In fact, we have brought a very important outcome of the open access. It has brought in a lot of independent players in the country. Right now in the trading space, but slowly, they are also entering the generation space. They are also entering the transmission steps. That is a very important development. Right now, the independent power producers, as we call them, the independent power traders, right now I can list the ones that are already active. We have EN Power, we have Petrodex, we have Africa Green Co, and we have Canona. Those four are already playing important roles. When we're importing power from South Africa, from Zesco, Africa Green Co underwrote our exports, our imports, so that Zesco could give us power. Because we're riding on their balance sheet now, that they will be able to ensure that we don't fail to pay. That is it. When we needed a certain amount paid to Mamba from our old debt, Mamba Energy, so that the project does not stall. Because remember, Mamba Energy is bringing us another 150 megawatts before the end of the year. before the end of before mid next year. In fact, we are pushing for 300 megawatts. All the infrastructure go to Mamba looks very nice. Again, we went to Canona. We said, Canona, are you able to broker us to underwrite an amount of $75 million so that we can meet the Mamba obligation? Then when we do that, we then bring forward a quick acceleration of this plant so that we have more power before mid next year. And they did. So these independent power producers have become our key partners in ensuring that where our financial ability, our cash flows are failing us, they help us.
The government, you spoke about this earlier on, but the government chairman recently introduced a net metering initiative to encourage citizens to generate solar power and feed the excess into the national grid. I'd like to find out how this net metering is going, and that initiative of also having solar, rooftop solar panels. How is this moving, and has it yielded any results?
Let me just start from my home. I did it. I put up panels in my home. Actually what I didn't just put panels. I put an inverter and the batteries. Now, remember, as a father, not as board chairman, as a father, I have responsibility to my children.
Yes.
No matter how much I cry, if my children can't do homework because there's no power, they'll look at me as dad. We need power. So I think that's the starting point. Our responsibility as parents dictate certain things. Now, First, I was skeptical. People told me solar does not work. Now, Andrew, in my home, there is power because the batteries right now they are charging. The inverter right now is charging. As soon as the sun radiation starts going down, you see those batteries starting to flicker now, showing me that they are kicking in to stabilize my power supply. Whether Zesco is there or not, it will be working. So that first, it solved my personal problems at home as a parent.
Yep.
Secondly, that power is now available for Zesco to use to give to other people within the country. Now, the issue of net metering has not kicked in as fast as we thought, but people now are starting to come into the game. I foresee that by September, at least we should have reached 1,000 Zambians who are net metering.
Why do you think many people have not bought into this idea? Don't you think, additionally, Chairman, it's because setting up what you've set up at your home is very expensive, and it's for a few people who are rich like you that could do that?
I don't know whether it's a question of wealth or prioritization. There is a company called Young Japan. They said they've reduced the price of cars. They were accused. People were sleeping outside buying cars. And they were not selling them on credit. People were buying cash. They were buying cars, sleeping on a queue to buy cars. So I did not sleep on a queue to buy a car. What I did is I used that money to do solar. Every time in life, and you know it very well, we are always faced with options. The little resource you have an option where to take it. I am not saying that it's not expensive, it is. But again, not every Zambian is at the same level. There are some people who don't have solar, who have more money than me. And that's a fact. And there are some people with less money than others who have solar.
Others have suggested, Chairman, that perhaps you as Zesco should come in and, because also there was the idea of the people on the market exploiting, customers with hefty, charges for the solar panels and these inverters. Others suggested that perhaps Zesco must be the ones to sell, these to their clients. Perhaps, maybe, they could be cheap and many would jump on board. And you see, and when I look at you, look very entrepreneurial. There is an opportunity for you. Get the panels yourself, sell to the country at an affordable, undercut the prices. Trust me, I went to China for something. The way the prices of solar panels, batteries and inverters are falling in China is amazing. There is a business opportunity waiting to be taken by people who are entrepreneurial. And unfortunately, we all look to Zesco to do this. Zesco itself is financially struggling.
We don't have the cash flows
Yeah.
to go around. But there are people in this country who got the cash flow, who can easily fill that gap. They can even partner with Zesco, come with a proposal, say, look, I have $10 million.
Yeah.
Can we work together, use your networks to get us these panels, and we find how we get the demand guaranteed from your customers? We could do that. But all I'm saying is that we just have to see how we address the problems as a group. And now that we're here, there's 3 points that I need to emphasize to you. One, Zambia continues until the emergency tariff to have the cheapest power in the region. And yet, we have erratic supply. In short, we have put affordability above availability. To me, a proper thinking country must put availability above affordability. Then when you have, you can subsidize. That is why under Zesco tariffs, we always have a lifeline tariff, where we say the first 100 units are always below market price. That shall be guaranteed no matter what we do. But we need to accelerate to cost reflectivity. In fact, if it was according to me, by the end of June yesterday, we should have reached cost reflectivity for the country. What does that do? It then guarantees the investors who want to put money, if you want to put money in those solar panels, if you want to put a generating plant, you want to do your 5 megawatts as a group at Diamond, if you can come up with a special purpose vehicle to do that, a 5 megawatt somewhere. You know that when we have this thing, we are going to sell at a price that reflects the cost. That makes us recover as investors, because every time the word investor is mentioned in this country, we are thinking of foreigners. No, we are the investors as citizens. If you have a piece of land, call some colleagues, put your money together, contribute to your land, come up with a 1 megawatt, 5 megawatt, whatever it is.
Yep.
But if the price is right, we cannot then, after you put in your money, we as Zesco subsidize the consumer. You have no guarantee that your money will come back.
Gonna come back. I'll tell you a story, Chairman. I was at a barber shop last month. I was power cut, but then the gentleman was using an inverter, you know. So I asked him, are you net metering? Are you selling this excess power to Zesco? He didn't have an idea what that was about. How much public awareness have you raised on net metering? And do you have specific people that must do the installation, you know, for one to qualify to sell excess electricity?
Now, let me just confess that as Zesco, we have not played our part well in net metering. We ought to have been more publicizing. We don't. We are doing it, but we haven't done enough. By the way, this thing has created certain businesses. I also go to a barber shop near my place there. I found something very interesting.
Yep.
At any time, you'll find more than 20 phones charging. That guy is charging money for those phones. You charge your phone, 15 kwacha. Yeah. Because he saw the opportunity, bought solar panels, put an inverter. Daytime, you are coming to cut your hair, other people are just coming to charge their phones. And he's making money. That is why I say some crises create business opportunity for the entrepreneurial minded. But for those of us who cry all the time, no, this one, we will cry, but the others are eating.
I asked that question because he asked me, how can I go about selling my power to Zesco?
Good.
And so, do we have to call Zesco when we put, you know, the solar panels on our rooftops? What happens for us to qualify for net metering, Chairman?
There should be no need to call Zesco. Zesco should be proactively looking for people. But of course, they also put up an advert nationwide that we are giving a special meter installation for the first 1,000 people want to net meter. I don't know, maybe people don't catch some of this from the press, but that is what it is supposed to achieve. That is supposed to encourage people to net meter. But yes, I think you, through your, let me communicate to Zesco so that can we widen our net? Go through barber shops, through markets, see how you have surveys for customers, those who have solar. So that not only do you capture the number of people already on solar who can net meter, but also you will see how much contribution is occurring towards 1,000 megawatts.
In conclusion, Chairman, Between January and May of 2025, Zesco recorded 1,156 cases of vandalism. What has been the financial impact of this on the utility company, and how has it contributed to prolonged power outages?
Now, you've raised a very important question, and that's vandalism. Vandalism has two aspects. There is a supply, there is a demand. So far, we have been trying to catch those people who get bent by transformers. I call them the disposables. We are not concentrating on the people who consume. The big companies, the big players who get those things, who make the millions out of vandalized equipment. I think as a country, let us have a deliberate policy where we are ruthless on people who deal in vandalized equipment. Don't worry about the small guy. That one will be starved once you cut the demand side. Let's focus on this thing is costing Zesco. Take us steps backwards. People are building houses. Zesco wants to bring more power to individuals who have built houses. But what we do, the transformer that was earmarked for a new settlement ends up going back to where we had solved the problem. This thing is costing us anything. I think there's a month where we lost close to 8 million kwacha in vandalized equipment. I think as a country, we need to stamp on this decisively. I think, how does a truck leave Zambia with the 400, maybe 4,000 kgs of vandalized equipment? It crosses the border, Zambian border. How? How did our systems fail to catch this illegal system? It means the whole value chain is polluted. We need to deal with this pollution. In fact, while we're still at vandalism, there is another form of problem that we face as Zesco, and that is where people are overriding meters, illegal connections. And in all these things, there will always be a component of connivance from various players, and we need to stamp this. And on the second point, let me just quickly mention that Zesco has gone on a pilot project with a company called Vickson Energy. They are studying one area in Zambia, in Lusaka, on the leakages of revenue. Electrons that left a transformer to go into buildings. How much of that is being built? The results are a bit shocking. We're talking of the region of 40%. But the report is coming. I'm hopefully in the next one week or so, we'll have the full report. And once it's there, I shall come and explain everything of what we found. More importantly, these people also have systems that can track all these things. In fact, when I talked to them, I was excited because we can even monitor all the transformer installation in the country. We can see when one transformer has gone down. Immediately from your laptop, a transformer has been stolen from there. Then you are quick to react.
But tell me this, Chairman, are you putting in any measures to enhance security with these facilities that you have, very expensive facilities that you have? Is there any plan to enhance security?
That's what I'm talking about, the Vickson story. Once then we have this, then your security is positioned well. You don't have to go drive around the country and hope. You know now the vulnerable areas. But you know where to station your key security people so that they can quickly rush. The moment I see the movements around my transformer from a computer, you alert them. Security, monitor this place. Possible problem. You see a transformer is going down, immediately send people there. Can you go and check? Then you start to arrest these things very quickly. And I'm very excited about this project that's taking place. Because, we cannot continue using outdated methods of monitoring. There's technology now. Let's embrace it.
Again, as we conclude, as you look to the people, the thousands of people that are watching you this evening, what are you telling them that had the hope to hear something good coming out from the chairman in regards to when the dark days will end? Chairman.
I'll first start by thanking the Zambian people for their patience, tolerance. The pain is real, and I can never downplay it as chairman of Zesco. And I feel the pain because I live with people. I've seen businesses close. I've seen barbershop close. I've seen hair salons close. I told you a story last time about a man who used to do my tailoring. When I went there, I was told he was shifted back to Kasama because he could no longer operate at night. We see the pain. There is hope. We are driving solutions based first primarily on solar, but we are diversifying this energy mix to ensure that never again shall we fall back to the issue of load shedding. By December, as the President has said, you will see a significant improvement in this issue of load shedding, and we are committed to it.
Zesco Board Chairman, thank you so much for making time to speak with the Zambians tonight on this day.
Thank you very much.